friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Sid and I make videos about creating a life that I love to live. And staying on top of my finances is a huge part of that. Earlier this year, I finished a journey of paying off about $73,000 of debt. I was in student loan debt, credit card debt, all kinds of stuff, and creating a budget and sticking to a budget played a huge part in being successful on that journey and getting it all paid off in about 2 years. And today I want to share the budgeting tools that I used along the journey that were very helpful and what I still use today to stay on top of my money. Honestly, this kind of stuff excites me. I love to budget. I love to check in on my accounts. I love seeing where the money is going. I love anticipating how long I've got until I reach a savings goal. I, of course, love reaching the goals. I just love doing this kind of stuff, but I recognize everyone is not that way. Everyone doesn't love to do it. Everyone doesn't know how to do it, which is why I want to walk through the process today. And I also want to share a few things about why it's important to budget. If you're new to budgeting and you don't really understand why it's beneficial, or if you're someone who is skeptical about budgeting, just understand that budgeting is not to restrict your life. I think some people avoid it because they just don't know how to get started. I think some people don't want to face the truth about their spending, or some people might feel like, okay, well, if I start to budget, then I can no longer live the way I want to and spend money the way I want to. It's not to restrict your life. Budgeting is just keeping track of how much money you bring in a month, keeping track of how much your wants and your needs cost, and keeping track of your spending in a month. It really is just a tracker. It's just a tool to track. It can actually be really freeing to look at your budget and see how you could change your spending habits to save or spend toward the things that you're really wanting. And it can be really revealing too when you're making your budget to see how some things in your household may need to change. I know that in the past when I've looked at my budget, I've realized, okay, I need to make more money. There's no way around it. I have to bring more money in to reach some of these goals or to make things work. And I've definitely had instances where I've looked at my budget and I've had to look into changing how I spend money. I've had to switch internet providers to save money, to go to a lower cost provider. I've had to shop around for car insurance. Your budget will reveal things that will be better for you along your journey in saving money. And please don't think that budgeting is only for people who make a certain amount of money. You can benefit from budgeting if you're a college student who's just trying to make it. If you're in your career and you're making like $35,000 a year or less, I have been there. Budgeting has helped me every step along the way. And also don't think that, oh, I make so much money, I don't have to worry about budgeting. Trust me, it benefits you too. Budgeting is helpful for everyone. If you got goals, if you want to know how you're spending your money, how your household bills are stacking up, budgeting is fantastic. So I'm going to walk through the monthly budget worksheet that I use, where to find it, how to set it up, how to use it each month. And for my friends who are also paying off their debt, trying to crush it, I'm going to walk through the debt payoff calculator that I used on my debt payoff journey that helped me tremendously. So let's get into it. Okay, friends, before you fill out your budget, you need to write down what you spend money on in a month and how much you spend on those things. That means writing down your bills, your needs, and the things you like to spend money on in a month, like getting your eyebrows done. You also need to write down your actual spending to get an idea of what to budget for. So open your bank account and write down what your internet costs if you don't already know. Your utilities may fluctuate, but write down what it costs when it's on the higher side. Same thing for groceries. You need this information moving forward, and this will help you see where you can adjust your spending. Also, for the sake of this video, these categories and numbers are made up. Now that you've got your list, let's fill out the budget. Hey friend, let's grab that budget worksheet. So you're going to search for Vertex 42, that's VERTEX 42, and it is a website that has templates for all kinds of stuff, project management, budgeting, calendars. We're going to focus on the budgeting, obviously, so click the second button here where you can browse the templates. Take a look through here, scroll through here and see what fits your style and what you're looking to focus on and what you like the look of. They have weekly budgets, monthly budgets, college student budgets. I personally like to use a zero-based budgeting method, so I like to use the zero-based worksheet that they have right here. And zero-based means that every dollar you bring in has a job to do. It's assigned a category and it has somewhere to go, so that when you budget your money for the month, the remaining amount should be zero. And I'll show you all this when we walk through it. Okay, so here's the budget worksheet. You can download this as an Excel file. You can add it to your Google Drive. That is what I prefer to do. So we're just going to add this to Google. One thing that I like about the worksheets on this website is that you can preview it. You get a pretty thorough preview before you can use it, which is really great to see if you actually like the look of this, if this is going to make sense. Are you going to actually keep up with something that looks like this every month? If not, maybe you want to try a more simpler looking worksheet, and it has instructions on things to keep in mind for entering formulas and things like that. Honestly, I don't pay too much attention to this. I just like to keep it pretty simple. And so we're going to use this template. And now it is saved to my Google Drive. Another thing that I love about this budget worksheet template is that it already lays out things for you pretty well. It already lays out categories for you. It already lays out examples within the categories of things to keep in mind when forming your budget. This first box here is everything relating to your income, the money that you are bringing in for the month. Then there's a space for adjustments, things like tithing, things that would come out of your paycheck. Then there's big bills, a space for debt. Number 4 is debt. A space for small bills, 6 is daily living, and then this last space here for savings. And then the final budget here, it says in parentheses, make it 0. It's reminding you to keep in mind that everything that you're doing on this worksheet, you want it to end up where this number in this red box is 0. So let's customize this worksheet as if we are actually setting up a budget for a new month. So I'm going to scroll to the top, and I already know that I don't want to look at all these instructions. That's not cute to me. So I'm going to go ahead and just hide this column. And let's say we're doing this for January 2023. Now, for the purpose of walking through this budget, I'm going to make up categories and make up numbers. I'm not actually using the numbers and categories that are in my personal household budget. So for box 1, and putting in examples of things that relate to income. Let's say that my first paycheck of the month, I'm expecting to be $900. And let's say that it actually is. But maybe my second paycheck in the month is, I'm expecting it to be $900. But for some reason, it's like $850. These are things that are helpful for this worksheet to have in mind what you're budgeting for the month and keeping track of what you actually got as income, because depending on your job or your field or how your pay situation works, these things can differ from paycheck to paycheck. Anything that you're getting in that month can count as income. Like, for example, an example here is Social Security, a pension. I'm going to remove that because that doesn't really relate to me. I'm going to choose some examples like, let's say you got birthday money. Let's say you got birthday money from your grandma and it was $100. You weren't expecting it. So let's say you budget 0 for that because you weren't expecting that, but you actually got $100 that month. Anything that you bring in that month that you're going to spend, that is income. And the worksheet is keeping track of all of the totals for you. So I knew that I was budgeting $1,800 to bring in this month, but I actually have $1,850 to work with. This budget worksheet is going to keep track of all of these amounts as you enter in new numbers. Now, I'm going to be honest, box 2 is not something that I would fill out. I don't have anything that would go here, and so I would just remove these categories. But if for some reason, I'm going to put them back. If for some reason you tithe or you have other paycheck deductions or you have priority savings, anything that would be an example like this that works out for your life, please, fill that in. But moving on to box number 3, big bills. These have to be accounted for. You can't really get into the things that you want to spend and want to save for until you make sure that the things that you have to take care of month to month are accounted for. So let's say your rent is the same every month and you pay, this is a really low rent, y'all. This is just an example. But let's say, you split it with a roommate or something and for some reason you pay $550. You're going to pay that every month. Now, there are other categories here that are examples of big bills: health insurance, major car repairs, unexpected medical bills, things like that. Anything that fits into your life, please put it here. But for the sake of keeping this pretty simple and a pretty easy to get through example, I'm going to get rid of a lot of these categories and just have a few examples of big bills like car insurance. Let's say that you spend $100 on that a month, so you're going to pay for that each month. Now let's move on to the next category, which is debt. If you don't have any debt, just delete this here. You don't have to pay any mind to it. But let's say you put a little bit on your car payment each month. Like you've got to pay $100. That's your car note. You got to take care of that each month. Let's say you put a little bit on a credit card each month. You want to budget maybe $50 and you actually pay that each month. Maybe you do the same for your student loans. You got a little $50 payment here, and that's how much you pay. I know these are low numbers, but again, trying to use simple examples here. And you'll see that the budget calculator is keeping track of each number you put in. It is updating the budget. It's updating your actual amount that you have to work with each keystroke, with each number that you're putting in. Now let's go to the small bills. Examples here are like your internet, your phone bill, your cable, medical, dental, vision. For a lot of people, that's probably already taken out of your paycheck, but depending on your kind of work, maybe it isn't. Magazine subscription, if you have something like that, paying for your term life insurance, things like that, renter's insurance, home insurance, things like that. Those will count as small bills. But at the same time, these are just examples. So if some of these are big bills for you, move them over to the big bills category. Like this is your household budget and this is how you see things. So really customize this in a way where it makes sense for you. So I'm going to get rid of these just to focus on a few examples of small bills. So maybe, you pay for your internet and that costs about $40 a month and you spend $40 a month on your internet. Another small bill could be your Netflix, and maybe that's about $20, and that's how much you spend each month. And let's think of another small bill, your phone. Let's say your phone bill is about $50 a month. Those are a few examples there. When it comes to the daily living, I would honestly skip over this and go to your savings next, making sure that you are setting money aside for the goals that you have first before you worry about how much you're going to spend on something like clothing. And honestly, groceries, I wouldn't even put here, but we'll get to that in a second. So I would go to savings and think about the goals that you have and how much money you need to put toward them. So emergency fund, if you don't have one fully funded, set money aside for this. Debt snowball, retirement, things like that. I'm just going to focus on a few examples here. So let's say, you have an emergency fund and you want to commit to putting $75 a month toward that. Fantastic. Let's say you also want to take a trip, a birthday trip, sometime this year or next year, whatever you want to do for yourself. Figure out how much money you need to take the trip and then divide that by how many months that you're planning ahead for. Figure out how much you need to save each month. So let's say you want to put away maybe like $50 a month so you can take your trip, and maybe you also want to save for Christmas. You want to make sure that your nieces and nephews, that you can cover some gifts or something. Let's say you want to put $50 toward that a month too. Make sure that the things that you want to save for are accounted for before you start getting into more discretionary spending. So we see here that we have $665 left in the budget to put somewhere. So let's make sure that that money has somewhere to go. Now we can kind of get into our daily living. And honestly, I would consider groceries a big bill. That is a serious bill. Having, a certain amount of money set aside for what you need to eat in the month is, in my personal opinion, a big bill. So I'm going to drop it here. And let's say we spend about $250 in a month on groceries. And let's adjust this daily living for some different kind of categories. So for example, if you are able to, if your budget allows, you might want to put in some nice things to treat yourself, like getting your eyebrows done. That may be very important to you. Maybe you pay $20 for that every time you go ahead and budget that in. If getting your nails done and your toes done is important to you and your budget allows it, and you want to do something nice for yourself in that way, you spend maybe like $100 each time you go ahead and budget that in. If you drive to work, if you drive relatives around, if for any reason you're spending money on gas, make sure that your budget accounts for that too. I would honestly consider that a small bill, but wherever it makes sense for you, have a line item for your transportation costs. So let's say you spend maybe $50 on that a month too, and you actually spent $50 that month. Now let's take a look at how our zero-based budgeting is coming along. If you budget for both the things that you have to spend money on in 1 month and the things that you want to spend money on in 1 month, and you have money left over in this box, This is a good sign. It is a sign that you can rethink your debt payoff strategy and your saving strategy because you actually have more money to allocate toward these things than you probably thought you did have. So let's make sure that we split this amount up to, beef up some of these strategies here. If you do have debt and your emergency fund isn't fully funded, I would just put a little bit more toward that so that, you have some money there in case anything happens. You don't want to have all your cash wrapped up in paying off debt. And let's split this 195 amount up a little more onto these debt categories. So there's $100 budgeted for car. Let's put a little bit more toward that. We could pay off that car a little quicker. Let's also budget more for it and say that we actually spent the $200 on it. Let's budget more toward paying off the credit card. Let's put another $50 toward that. And let's actually spend $100 toward that. And let's put this last remaining amount toward the student loans. Let's increase how much we budget for that each month and how much we spent on that in the month. So that's it. That is an example of taking all of your bills and allocating money in your budget to where it comes up to zero and everything has a job to do. Now, because we have birthday money, we had a little more money this month than we would have thought. So there's this $50 here that doesn't have a job to do yet. Put this where you're most comfortable. For me personally, I would probably spend a little bit more toward debt. So if it's a credit card with high interest, I will put a little bit more toward that, and that would be zero-based budgeting, how much I actually brought in for the month too. So that is an example of zero-based budgeting and how this worksheet helps you break things down into categories to customize your monthly budget. Now let's move on to the debt payoff calculator. All right, friends, let's walk through the debt payoff calculator. You're going to go to vertex42.com. This is the same website where we got the monthly budget worksheet, and you're going to search for debt calculator. And it is going to be this first result right here called debt reduction calculator or debt snowball calculator. You'll get a preview of what it looks like. You'll see here that you can put in categories and that here it'll show you the interest you're paying, how many months to pay it off, all that kind of stuff. And just like the monthly budget calculator, we are going to add this to Google Sheets so that we can customize it and edit it for our own needs. Or if you want, you can download an Excel file and edit it that way. So let's use this in Google. Get the template. And here you can really see a better preview of what you're about to get into. This is the same debt reduction calculator I used when I paid off my $73,000 in debt, and it was so helpful. And it walks you through the kind of strategies you can use to approach this calculator. The most popular being snowball and the avalanche method. The snowball method means you pay your lowest balance first, and that kind of gives you a feeling of speeding up in the debt process because you're paying off the small balances first and then going on to the next largest and the next largest. And it kind of gives you this feeling of that you're getting through the journey a little faster. The avalanche method means you're paying the highest interest debt first. And that can kind of make you feel like you're going through the process slower. But the benefit with the avalanche method is that you end up paying less interest overall. So you really have to choose which strategy works for you and have that figured out before you start entering your numbers into the template. So let's go ahead and use this template in Google and start filling it in with some example categories. So let's look through this whole worksheet to see how this is laid out and what we would need to enter into this. First, we have our balance date. We want this to be pretty current. So I don't know why it's so far back, but let's set this for January 2023. The rest of this top section is where you enter in all of your loan information. You enter in who you owe, the balance of your loan, the interest rate of your loan, how much you pay, and the order in which you want to knock these loans out. And if you scroll down a little bit, here is where you can enter your monthly payment, which is how much you have in your budget to pay toward debt each month. And then this next box is the initial snowball, which is how much money is left over after you've made all the necessary payments towards your debt. So this number here is your monthly payment, how much you have to spend on debt, minus how much you actually have spent that month. This is how much you have left over to put a little more toward debt. Then here you can enter your debt payoff strategy. I personally use the snowball method, so I'm going to switch to that, which is the lowest balance first. A lot of people who are easing into the debt payoff lifestyle, they typically go for this method, but whichever one works for you. So we're back at the top of this worksheet, and I think that these are great examples to work with for the sake of this video. I mean, obviously update this for the loans and the balances that are true for your life, but these are things that you often hear about and see people have on a debt-free journey: a credit card or two, a car loan, a student loan. And because we're doing the snowball method, we're going to focus on the lowest balance first, which would be auto loan number one, a $3,200 balance with a $30 a month payment. And this worksheet is telling us that we have $530 more that we could be putting toward debt a month. So let's just go ahead and allocate that toward our smallest balance so we can get through that debt payoff a little faster on the car. So we would make that $560. And then as you continue to make this $560 payment every month, update your balance so that that goes lower and lower and lower each month. Make sure that you're checking in on this each month. That's part of having the worksheet, is that you have to have the discipline to come back to this worksheet and update it each month to make sure all your balances are reflected. And also, as you're paying off your balance on your car, you're still paying the minimum on everything else. You're still paying that credit card, auto loan 2, card number 2. Those are all staying the same. Eventually, over time, as you're paying this $560 each month, this balance is going to go down, and it's going to go down to the point where you do, pay it off, hey, and this will be 0. And you can go ahead and update that, and you're no longer paying on it. So you can also say 0 payment here. You're going to move on to the next smallest balance, which would be card number 1. You're paying $50 a month on it, but now you have more money in the budget to put toward this debt too. So we're going to take that $560 that used to be on the car note, and we're going to put that on the credit card. We're going to make that $610. Now we're paying $610 a month on the credit card. Each month, as you pay that $610, be sure to come over to the balance and update that with the current balance each month. And you'll do the same thing over and over for each balance and each payment every month. This balance will continue to go down until it gets to 0. And when it does, you're going to take this $610 and add that on to the next lowest loan amount. This will continue on, and that is the snowball method. And that is how you use this debt reduction calculator to keep up with that method. One thing that I want to note about using this calculator on Google, which was so helpful for me on my journey, was to look at the version history. If you ever get stuck and you need some encouragement on how far you've come along, look at the version history. Obviously, I've only downloaded this today, so I don't have that much of a history, but scroll through here and look at the version history to see what your balance was when you first started out versus how much it is now. I mean, even between these two examples, my balance was $2,600, and now it is down to $23,300. Just continue to check in on your progress, because that is going to give you the motivation to keep going and to keep at it. And that's how I use this debt reduction calculator on my debt-free journey. I hope this process of setting up your monthly budget and your debt payoff calculator was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and let me know if there's any different methods or approaches you use for handling your budget. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.